So I recently made a video about why everyone is broke, and it seems like that video resonated with a lot of people. But if you've ever looked around, you might start to realize that it doesn't really seem like everyone's broke, does it? In fact, it might feel like it's actually only you. This is a totally true story. I was sitting at a red light the other day in my trusty old RAV4, jamming out to Ocean Avenue like I always am, and I started to notice that all the cars that were around me, it was like Mercedes, Audi, Lexus, like one other Toyota, Porsche, Jaguar, Audi, Lexus, Mercedes, BMW. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? On one hand, everyone is always complaining lately about the cost of everything. Rent, gas, groceries, clothes, everything is so expensive. But then everyone you see is decked out head to toe in designer brands, driving $100,000 cars, traveling constantly, and spending $5,000 on Taylor Swift tickets. It just doesn't really make any sense. How can it be that everyone has so much more money than you do? Well, for starters, most of them don't. The unspoken truth of the seemingly wealthy is debt. For a lot of people, the nice things that they own, well, they don't actually even own them. Their car is financed, their house is mortgaged to the max, everything they buy is put on a credit card or broken into installments with a firm, and while they might appear to be rich, they're actually totally broke. They owe money to everyone, and they'll most likely never get out of debt or be able to retire, which is not exactly something to be envious of if you ask me. And the saddest part of all of this is that in a lot of cases, these people are actually making a fairly respectable income. Like, they may not be rich, but they should be comfortable. But they never will be, because they're living so far beyond their means, just trying to keep up the appearance that there's someone they're not. But what about when that's not the case? Obviously, not everyone is drowning in debt, just trying to keep up a false appearance of being rich. Some people genuinely do have a lot of money, and that's just how it is. There are many jobs out there that are known to pay well into the six figures. Medicine, law, accounting, architecture, investment banking, software development, just to name a few. People working in these fields genuinely make a lot of money, and they have the means to live an expensive lifestyle. We all make choices, right? Like, technically, you could have chosen to go into any of those fields, and then you'd be making a lot of money too. Personally, there is no amount of money that could ever entice me to become a doctor. But clearly, not everyone feels that way. If someone wants to stick their fingers in strangers' orifices and cut open human bodies for a living, then you know what? They can have their Ferrari. All good, well-deserved. I will take the bus. It's fine. In some other cases, people might have generational wealth.
What do you do for work?
Nothing.
Why not?
That is money.
They might come from a long line of affluence and get help from their families, either in the form of having things bought for them directly, or of getting an inheritance, or maybe even being given a cushy job in a family business. Hell, maybe they won the lottery. You just never really know. And something else you never really know is who has access to your personal information. Thanks to data brokers, all your sensitive info, like your current and past addresses and phone numbers, your occupation and workplace, your health records, your legal history, your political affiliations, and even your relatives, are all being compiled into a profile of you that is being bought and sold to people who can weaponize it against you in the form of discrimination, harassment, stalking, scams, and even identity theft. Especially in the current political climate, the risk of being doxxed or harassed for expressing your opinions online has never been higher. And that's why I've been personally using today's sponsor, Delete Me, for the last several months to help keep my privacy intact and help keep me safe from the crazies on the internet, because there's a lot of them. Delete Me is a hands-off service that works to remove your information from places it doesn't belong. They send you quarterly reports showing you everywhere your data was found and wiped from. So to keep your private information private as it should be, head over to joindeleteme.com/Nicole or click the link in the description box down below and use the code Nicole to get 20% off your US consumer plan, and thanks to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. Next, let's talk about the comparison trap. As the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. And as corny and as cliche as that sounds, it's totally true. Because the fact is that no matter who you are and no matter how much you have, there will always be someone who has more than you. Even multi-billionaires like Daddy Bezos and Space Karen are constantly in competition with each other to be the richest person in the world. Like, each of them has more money than they could ever spend in 100 lifetimes, but they get their little fifis hurt just by the very idea that someone might have a little bit more than they have. It's a sickness. Really, you shouldn't feel the need to impress anyone but yourself. Your neighbor might have a nicer car than you, and that might make you feel bad, but his coworker has an even nicer one, so he actually feels exactly the same way you do. And it used to be that we only really saw what the people closest to us were up to. So if we felt compelled to keep up with anyone, it would just be our neighbors and our friends. And we might even have some context as to how they afford the things that they do, or if they even actually afford them at all. But thanks to social media, now everyone has a platform to constantly boast about everything they do and everywhere they go, every single moment of their life. If a millennial buys a house and doesn't post a selfie in front of the sold sign with the caption, "We did a thing," did they even really do the thing? It's also important to remember that all you're seeing is a highlight reel. No one is posting about the overdue bill that they don't have the money for. No one is posting about their credit card getting declined at the grocery store, or about having to walk to work because their car broke down and they can't afford to fix it. And if people posted about their lows even half as often as they posted about their highs, you start to realize that you're not really missing out on anything at all. And even within the highlights, you're generally not seeing the other half of the story. You're not seeing the sacrifices that someone might be making to afford the lifestyle they have. And they could be sacrifices that you would never be willing to make for anything. Like I said, I'm not poking around anyone's pooper for a sports car, but you do you. You don't see that the person with the really high-paying job might be working 80 hours a week and missing out on time with loved ones to make all that money. You don't see that someone who's traveling all the time is only able to afford that because they're splitting a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 roommates.
Please don't tell anyone how I live.
One of my neighbors recently told me that they have an investment property, and I was a little surprised by that because housing is pretty expensive around here. And so to me, the idea of owning 2 properties is inconceivable. But then I started to realize, they're a multi-generational family. They have 4 adults living in their house, all contributing to the bills. Their cost of living is so much lower than mine is. You just never really know what someone's circumstances may be and how they may be different than yours. And on that note, you may just have different goals than other people, and that's perfectly okay. That's always been the case for me. I've always had very big goals, and I've been very good at practicing delayed gratification to achieve them. I'm perfectly happy to drive an older car, to cook my meals at home, and to just live a simple life, if it means that I can achieve financial independence and retire before I'm 40. Because really, there's nothing that I can think of that I would want to buy that is more appealing to me than having a life where I can just do whatever I want all the time. But understandably, not everyone feels that way. Some people prefer to splurge today and worry about tomorrow. They may be perfectly willing to work until they're 65 or 75 if it means that they can buy the things they want right now. Will they actually feel that way when they get to that age? Probably not, but that's their choice to make. I think that a lot of people, especially when they're younger, fail to understand how their priorities and their goals will change as they get older. When you're in your 20s, it's hard to imagine what your life will be like in 20 years, let alone in 40 or 50 years. When you're young and healthy, it's hard to imagine being old and sick. When you're single and childless, it's hard to imagine having grandkids you might want to hang out with. When everyone around you is working a full-time job just like you are, it's hard to imagine getting to a point where everyone else is retired and has the freedom to do whatever they want, except for you, because you still have to work. And in no way am I suggesting that you should live a life of deprivation just to save for retirement. Not at all. You can and should enjoy your life today and treat yourself to things, but just do it in a way that is reasonable relative to your income. Plan for it and budget for it so it doesn't affect your long-term goals, and then you're Gucci. And finally, while some people are rich and some are just in heaps of debt from trying to look rich, others are lying and don't even have the things they claim to. For real, there is an entire phenomenon of influencers taking photos of themselves in front of exotic cars or mansions or boats, and they're not even theirs. Even Hollywood celebrities would go out and rent a whole bunch of expensive cars to park on their driveway when they were filming for MTV Cribs back in the day, which is really pathetic if you ask me. People lease cars, rent homes, buy knockoffs of expensive items, and then deny all of it. They take selfies with random parked cars, they show off Airbnbs as though that's their home, and generally just tell bullshit stories to try to seem more interesting and wealthy than they actually are. Real estate agents, for example, are notorious for leasing expensive cars to drive clients around in because it makes it look like they're more successful than they actually are. For them, it's part of the marketing, but most of them drive very modest, normal cars when they're not working. In fact, the real estate agent that I worked with when I was buying my house took me to all the showings in her Jaguar. But then once all the paperwork was signed and everything was finalized, all the future meetings we had, she showed up to in a Subaru, which it's fine by me, honestly, I don't care. But all of this is to say that despite how it might look on the outside, most people are probably not actually doing all that much better than you are. And those who are have to touch strangers' buttholes for a living, so be careful what you wish for. If you enjoyed this video at all, please go ahead and hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so yet. You can follow me on Instagram at according_to_Nicole. Don't forget to check out Delete Me at the link in the description box down below. Use the code Nicole, you'll get 20% off. Other than that, thank you guys so much as always for watching. Take care, see you in the next one.